I drove 800 miles to get to my daughter Mary Jane's wedding. I knocked on the door of her house at 6 in the morning with my bags in hand and my heart full of emotion. When she opened the door, her first reaction was not to hug me. She looked at me as if I were a stranger and said, "Sorry, Mom, I didn't know you were coming." In that moment, something broke inside me. 71 years lived, 800 miles driven, and my own daughter was acting as if my presence were a nuisance. But that was nothing compared to what would come next. Listen to the story to the end and tell me what you would do in my place. My son-in-law, Steve, appeared behind her with that fake smile that had always given me a bad feeling and blurted out the words that would change everything forever. "She thinks $63,000 guarantees your presence here." My blood ran cold, not for the amount I had given for her wedding, but for the coldness with which he said it, as if I were an investor, not a mother. My name is Mary. I am 71 years old, and for decades I believed that being a good mother meant giving everything without expecting anything in return. Mary Jane is my only daughter. I raised her alone after her father abandoned us when she was only 8 years old. I worked double shifts. I sacrificed. I sold my car. I mortgaged my house, all so that she could have the best. I paid for her college education, her first apartment, her new car. When she met Steve 3 years ago, I thought she had finally found happiness. How wrong I was. Steve turned out to be a manipulator who little by little drove Mary Jane away from me. At first, they were subtle comments. "Your mother is very nosy. Don't you think it's time for you to be independent? She treats you like a child." I saw how my daughter was changing, how she was becoming colder with me, but I thought it was part of growing up, of starting her own family. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. When they asked me for money for the wedding, I didn't hesitate for a second. $63,000 was practically all of my retirement savings, but it was for my daughter's happiness. "Mommy, we want a perfect wedding," Mary Jane told me with tears in her eyes. "You have always been so generous with us. I promise we will pay you back." A lie. It was all a lie. The day I transferred the money, Steve told me, "Mary, since you're paying for the wedding, you'll obviously be in the front row." I thought it was a sick joke. How was I not going to be at my own daughter's wedding? But when I arrived that morning after driving all night, I realized that for them, I was just a walking ATM. "I didn't know you were coming," Mary Jane repeated without even inviting me in. She was dressed in a pink silk robe, getting ready for the most important day of her life, and I was in the way. Steve came closer and added, "Mary, the ceremony is very intimate, just close family." Close family. As if I wasn't her mother. As if I hadn't been the one who comforted her when she had nightmares, who took care of her when she was sick, who worked until I bled to give her everything she needed. "But I am your mother," I said to Mary Jane, feeling my voice break. "I am your closest family." She looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "Mommy, it's just that we already have everything organized. The seats in the church, the reception, everything is calculated." Calculated. What a cold word to describe her wedding day. Steve took control of the conversation, as he always did. "Look, Mary, we really appreciate your contribution, but Mary Jane and I decided that we want a small ceremony just for the closest ones." The closest ones. I, who had given everything for that girl, was not part of the closest ones. It was at that moment that something changed inside me. A coldness I had never felt before spread throughout my body. I looked at Mary Jane. searching in her eyes for some trace of the girl I had raised, but I only found indifference. I had raised a stranger. I had loved someone who saw me as an ATM. I understand, I finally said with a calm that surprised even myself. I understand perfectly. Steve smiled, thinking he had won. Mary Jane sighed with relief, believing the awkward moment had passed, but they didn't know that I also had secrets. Secrets that were about to change all the rules of the game. I walked to my car with my dignity intact, but my heart in pieces. As I started the engine, I took out my phone and dialed my bank's number. "Good morning. I need to freeze a transfer I made 2 weeks ago." The voice on the other end of the line was professional and efficient. "Of course, ma'am. What is the reason?" "Family fraud," I replied without hesitation. In 5 minutes, the $63,000 was frozen. Mary Jane's perfect wedding had just become her worst nightmare. But this was just the beginning. As I drove back to town, my phone began to ring once, twice, 3 times. I let it ring. I knew exactly who it was and why they were calling. The bank notification had reached Mary Jane's account. "Transfer frozen by the sender." I could imagine Steve's face when he found out. I could imagine the panic in my daughter's eyes when she realized that her perfect wedding was falling apart. But I wasn't going to answer. Not yet. After so many years of being the mother who was always available, who always solved problems, who always said yes, it was time for them to learn what desperation felt like. It was time for them to know what it meant to need someone and for that person not to be there. I truly wonder if you were in my place. What would you do? Would you choose to be quiet to maintain peace? Or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else. I checked into the most elegant hotel in town, not the cheap motel where I always stayed when I came to visit them. This time, I wanted luxury. I wanted to feel valued, even if it was by strangers who treated me with respect in exchange for money. The receptionist smiled genuinely when I checked in. "Welcome, Ms. Mary. We hope you enjoy your stay." How different it was to be treated as a distinguished guest instead of a nuisance. In my room, a suite with a garden view, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down to wait. I didn't have to wait long. My phone exploded with calls. First call, Mary Jane. Second call, Steve. Third call, Mary Jane again. Fourth call, unknown number, probably Steve from another phone. Fifth, sixth, seventh call. I let them all go to voicemail. I finally decided to listen to the messages. Mary Jane's voice sounded desperate. "Mom, please, I need to talk to you. There was a mistake with the bank. Call me, please." A mistake? How convenient to call it a mistake now that she needed my money. The second message was from Steve, and his tone was completely different. "Mary, I don't know what game you're playing, but this is serious. We have vendors to pay, a venue reserved, guests coming from far away. Fix this immediately." Game. That word made me laugh. Because if this was a game, I had just changed the rules, and they didn't know that I held all the winning cards. But what really surprised me was the third message, also from Steve. "Listen to me, old woman. I don't know what's wrong with you, but if you don't fix this in the next 2 hours, you're going to regret it. Mary Jane is crying because of you. Is that what you want, to make your own daughter suffer?" Old woman. He had called me an old woman and then had the sheer audacity to blame me for Mary Jane's suffering. That was the last straw. I took my phone and dialed my lawyer's number. "Alex, it's Mary. I need to see you first thing in the morning. It's urgent." Alex had been my lawyer for years, since the divorce. He knew my entire financial situation. He knew about my properties, my investments, everything that Mary Jane and Steve were unaware of. "What's wrong, Mary? You sound upset." I told him everything, every detail, every humiliation, every cruel word. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Mary," he finally said, "are you sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no going back." "Alex, for 71 years, I've been too good, too understanding, too generous. I've been used, manipulated, treated as if I were worth nothing, no more. I want them to know exactly who they messed with." That night, while I dined alone in the hotel's elegant restaurant, my phone kept ringing. I counted the calls. 41 in total. 41 desperate calls from two people who had never called me just to ask how I was. 41 calls from two people who only remembered me when they needed something. But the calls weren't the worst part. It was the text messages. 12 messages that went from begging to threatening in a matter of hours. Mary Jane started with, "Mom, please, call me. We can talk about this later. I don't understand why you're doing this. I thought you wanted me to be happy." And finally, "If you ruin my wedding, I will never forgive you." But it was Steve's final texts that really showed me his true face. "Mary, this is ridiculous. Behaving like a child won't get you anywhere." Then, "We get the message. You wanted attention, you got it. Now, give us the money back." And the last one, the one that made me laugh out loud. "You're a bitter old woman who can't stand to see her daughter happy. You've always been a manipulator." Manipulator. Me, the woman who had given everything without asking for anything in return. The woman who had worked until she was sick to pay for my daughter's whims. The woman who had remained silent when Steve filled her with silly ideas about my supposed interference in their relationship. That night, I couldn't sleep, not out of guilt or regret, but because of the adrenaline. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. I felt in control. I felt like the protagonist of my own life, instead of a secondary character in the lives of others. At 3 in the morning, I decided to do something I had never done before. Check Mary Jane's social media. What I found broke my heart and strengthened me at the same time. Photo after photo of her, showing off her engagement ring, her ivory wedding dress, her honeymoon plans. I didn't appear in any of those posts. She didn't mention me in any of her stories. It was as if I didn't exist. But what hurt the most was a post she had made the previous week. "So grateful to my future husband for teaching me to be independent. I finally understand that true love is not dependence, but freedom. Thank you, Steve, for helping me cut the chains that held me back." Chains. I was the chains. My mother's love, my sacrifice, my dedication, all of that was chains to her. Steve had brainwashed her so well that she no longer saw my love, but as manipulation. She no longer saw my generosity as generosity, but as control. Tell me whether you have parents, grandparents, or older family members who deserve more respect than they currently receive from their families. Alternatively, tell me if you yourself are going through a situation in which you're not appreciated as much as you truly deserve. It was at that moment that I made the final decision. It wasn't just about the wedding money. It wasn't just about the humiliation of that morning. It was about years of being invisible, of being taken for granted, of being treated as a resource instead of as a person. I took out my laptop and began writing emails to my contacts, researching my rights, making plans for the next few days. If Mary Jane and Steve wanted war, they were going to get war. But this time I had the heavy artillery because what they didn't know was that I wasn't just a retired mother with some savings. I was a woman with properties, investments, contacts, and most importantly, the truth on my side. For years, I had kept silent about many things. I had protected Mary Jane from knowing certain details about her father, about our real financial situation, about the sacrifices I had made. But the silence was over. It was time for my daughter to know the whole truth. It was time for Steve to find out who he had really messed with. Dawn found me awake, dressed, and ready for battle. 41 missed calls shone on my phone screen. 12 threatening messages were waiting to be answered, but I was no longer yesterday's Mary. I was no longer the mother desperate to please her daughter. I was a woman who had decided to regain her power. And this was just beginning. At 7 in the morning, my phone rang again. This time I answered. It was Mary Jane, and her voice sounded broken. "Mom, please, we need to talk. Come home." Her tone had changed completely. It was no longer the coldness of yesterday, but pure desperation. "Good morning, Mary Jane," I replied with a calm that surprised even myself. "How are you this morning?" "Mom, don't play with me. You know exactly why I'm calling you. The bank says you froze the money. Why would you do something like that?" Her voice broke at the end of the sentence. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered her words from yesterday. "I didn't know you were coming." I remembered the look of contempt on Steve's face. I remembered how they had treated me like a stranger after I drove 800 miles to be there for the most important day of her life. "Mary Jane, I think it's time we had a conversation that we should have had a long time ago," I told her. "But it won't be at your house. If you want to talk to me, we'll meet in the lobby of the Continental Hotel at 10, and you come alone." "Alone? Why alone? Steve is my husband. He has the right to be present in our family conversations." There it was again, Steve controlling even the conversations between a mother and daughter. "Mary Jane, Steve is not your husband yet. And if you want me to unfreeze that money, you come alone or you don't come at all. You decide." There was a long silence. I could imagine her consulting with Steve, asking for permission to talk to her own mother. She finally sighed. "Okay, I'll be there at 10. She hung up without saying goodbye. How far my little girl was from the affectionate daughter who used to say, "I love you, Mommy," before hanging up the phone. But I had more important things to do before that meeting. I called Alex. "Good morning. Can we move up our appointment? I need to see you before 10. "Of course, Mary. How serious is this?" "Alex, we are going to change my will completely." An hour later, I was in Alex's office signing documents that Mary Jane had never imagined existed. "Are you completely sure about this, Mary?" He asked me for the third time. "This is a very drastic decision." I looked him directly in the eyes. "Alex, for years I have been a mother. I have put my daughter's needs before my own. I have sacrificed my happiness, my comfort, my dreams for her. And yesterday I discovered that to her I am just a bank account. I am more sure of this than of anything else in my life." The documents were ready. Alex explained every detail, every consequence. "Once you make this public, Mary Jane will know exactly what she is losing. Are you prepared for that conversation?" I smiled for the first time in 24 hours. "Alex, I've been preparing for that conversation my whole life. I just didn't know it." I arrived at the hotel 5 minutes before 10. Mary Jane was already there, sitting on a lobby chair with red eyes from crying so much. She was wearing a light green dress that I had given her last year for her birthday. She looked small, fragile. like the girl I used to comfort when she had nightmares. For a second, my mother's heart softened, but then I remembered Steve's words. She thinks $63,000 guarantees your presence. Mommy? She stood up when she saw me and tried to hug me. I took a step back. Sit down, Mary Jane. We have a lot to talk about. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw that I rejected her hug. Mommy, why are you acting like this? I don't recognize you. You don't recognize me? That's interesting, because I also didn't recognize my daughter yesterday when she shut the door in my face, after I drove 800 miles to be at her wedding. I sat in front of her, keeping my distance. Tell me, Mary Jane, at what point did you decide that your mother didn't deserve to be at the most important day of your life? Mommy, it wasn't like that. It's just complicated. Complicated. What a convenient word to avoid taking responsibility. Steve thought an intimate ceremony just for close family would be better. And I'm not close family. The woman who gave birth to you, who raised you alone, who worked double shifts to give you everything you needed. She's not close family. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. Of course you're close family. You're my mother. But Steve says you've always been very intense with me, that I need space to create my own family. Intense. That was the new word they had found to describe my mother's love. Mary Jane, let me ask you a very simple question. Who paid for your college? You, Mommy, but who bought you your first car? You, but who lent you the money for the apartment where you live now? But you. But I don't understand what that has to do with. And who gave you $63,000 for your perfect wedding? Her face turned pale. You, Mommy, you've always been generous with me. That's why I don't understand why now. Why now? Why, Mary Jane? Why now do I refuse to be treated as an ATM? Why now do I refuse to be invisible in my own daughter's life? You are not invisible. You are very important to me. Her voice sounded desperate. Important. Mary Jane, yesterday your fiancé told me that you both believed that $63,000 guaranteed my presence at the wedding, as if I were a guest who had bought her ticket. As if my place in your life depended on how much money I gave you. Steve didn't mean that. He was just nervous about the wedding. You know how people get when they're stressed. There she was again, defending Steve, justifying the unjustifiable. Mary Jane, you know what the saddest thing about all this is, that you can't even see when someone is manipulating you. Steve has brainwashed you so well that now you believe your mother's love is toxic. He hasn't brainwashed me. Steve helps me be independent. He helps me grow as a person. Independent. What irony. Independent, Mary Jane. You are not independent. You have gone from depending on me to depending on him. The difference is that I never made you feel guilty for needing me. That's not true. Steve truly loves me. He wants the best for me. The best for you. And the best for you includes humiliating your mother on your wedding day. It includes treating me like a stranger after everything I have done for you. Mary Jane stood up, clearly agitated. Mom, stop. I came here to ask you to unfreeze the money. The wedding is tomorrow. We have everything paid for with that money. If you don't release it, we're going to look ridiculous in front of all our guests. Oh, now you need me. Now I am important. How coincidental that your filial love appears just when you need something from me. I also stood up, looking her directly in the eyes. Tell me one thing, Mary Jane. In the last 6 months, how many times have you called me just to know how I was? How many times have you come to visit me without asking for something? Her silence was more eloquent than any answer. Exactly. 0 times. The only time you talk to me is when you need something. Money, favors, to watch your dog when you go on a trip. But never, ever do you call me just because you miss your mother. That's not true. I love you, Mom. You love me? Really? Then tell me, when was the last time you told me you loved me without it being related to a request for money? Again, silence. Another nail in the coffin. Mary Jane, I'm going to tell you something I have never told you. Something I've kept a secret all these years because I wanted to protect you. Her eyes widened with curiosity and fear. When your father abandoned us, I had two options. I could have gone with him as he asked and left you with my sister. Or I could stay with you and raise you alone. Dad asked you to go with him? Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Mary Jane. Your father asked me to leave everything and go with him to start a new life without you. He said you were too young, that you wouldn't remember us, that my sister would raise you well. Tears were running freely down her face. I chose to stay with you. I chose to be a single mother. I chose to sacrifice my chance to start my life over because you were more important than anything in the world. My voice also broke. And now, 43 years later, my own daughter treats me as if I were a nuisance. Mom, I didn't know. No, Mary Jane, you didn't know because you never asked. You were never interested in knowing how much it cost to raise you alone. You were never interested in knowing how many nights I stayed awake wondering if I was doing the right thing. You were never interested in knowing that I turned down 3 marriage proposals because no man was going to be more important than my daughter. The hotel lobby had become our stage of pain. Other guests were looking at us discreetly, but I no longer cared. This conversation had to happen. You know what the most painful thing about all of this is, Mary Jane? That you became exactly what I tried to avoid. You became someone who abandons their family when they no longer need them. Mary Jane collapsed in the armchair, sobbing uncontrollably. Mom, I didn't want to hurt you. It was never my intention. It's just that Steve says that. Enough, I shouted, and the whole lobby turned to look at us. Enough with Steve says. Steve thinks. Steve believes. Where is Mary Jane in all of this? Where is my daughter who had her own judgment? I don't know what to say. Her voice was that of a lost child. Steve helps me see things differently. He says you've been very controlling, that you've never let me grow up. Controlling? There was that word again. Mary Jane, tell me one thing. When have I ever controlled you? When have I ever forbidden you from doing something you really wanted to do? Well, you always had an opinion about my boyfriends. I had an opinion. I didn't forbid. Do you remember Dan, the boy who hit you in college? Do you remember what I told you? Her eyes filled with recognition. You told me that no man had the right to lay a hand on me. Exactly. And was that control, or was it maternal protection? It was protection, she admitted in a low voice. And what about Ivan, the one who cheated on you with your best friend? Do you remember what I told you? You told me I deserved someone who respected me. And was that control, or was it love? Then explain to me how Steve has convinced you that my love is control and his manipulation is freedom. Mary Jane fell silent, processing my words. I could see the confusion in her eyes, the internal struggle between what she felt and what she had been taught to think. Mom, Steve doesn't manipulate me. He loves me. He loves you, Mary Jane. A man who loves you doesn't drive you away from your mother. A man who loves you doesn't make you choose between him and your family. A man who loves you doesn't convince you to treat the person who has loved you the most in life badly. But he says I need to be independent. Mary Jane, look around you. Look at this luxurious hotel where I'm staying. Do you think a dependent woman can afford this? Do you think a woman without resources can freeze $63,000 as if it were pocket change?" Her eyes widened in surprise. "I hadn't thought about that." "No, because Steve has made you believe that I'm a needy old woman who depends on you. But the reality is very different, my love." I took out my phone and showed her the screen. "This is my main bank account. Read the number." Her eyes grew as big as saucers. "Mom, is this real?" "Very real. And this is just one of my accounts. Do you want to see the others?" "I don't understand where all this money came from. Work, smart investments, properties I bought when you were little. Do you remember those weekends you would come with me to visit friends? In reality, I was looking at properties, making investments, building a future for both of us." Mary Jane put her hands to her mouth. "All this time you've had so much money and you never told me." "What for? So you would love me for my money? So Steve would have his eyes on my bank account instead of on your heart? I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I have." "But Mom, if you have so much money, why did you work so hard? Why did you always say money was tight?" "Because I wanted to teach you the value of effort. I wanted you to know that good things are earned with hard work. I wanted to raise you with values, not with whims." Tears returned to her eyes. "Mom, I feel awful. I didn't know any of this." "No, Mary Jane. You didn't know because you never asked. In all these years, you were never interested in knowing how I really was, what my plans were, what I dreamed for my future. You were only interested in what I could give you." "That's not true." Her voice, sounded less convincing each time. "No. Then tell me, do you know what my favorite color is?" Silence. "Do you know what my favorite food is?" More silence. "Do you know what I like to do in my free time?" The silence was deafening. "You don't know anything about me, Mary Jane. To you, I am just Mom, the one who solves problems and gives money. But I am Mary. I am a 71-year-old woman with tastes, preferences, dreams, and plans. I am a complete person, not just your mother." "Mom, Let me finish. Yesterday, when Steve said that you both believed that $63,000 guaranteed my presence, it confirmed what I already knew. To you, my value is measured in money. As long as I can give, I am useful. When I can't, I will be disposable. Don't say that. You know I love you." "You love me? Seriously? Then answer this. Why in all your social media pages, in all your wedding photos, in all your posts about your happiness, do I never appear? Why do you never mention me? Why is it as if I don't exist in your life?" Mary Jane lowered her head in defeat. "Steve says that posting too much about family is in bad taste." "And what do you say? What do you think? Or do you no longer think for yourself?" My voice hardened. "Mary Jane, when was the last time you made a decision without consulting Steve?" "He's my partner. It's normal to consult with him about things." "Normal? Is it normal for your partner to decide whether or not you can mention your mother on social media? Is it normal for your partner to have an opinion on whether your mother can go to your wedding?" "He just wants to protect me." "Protect you from what? From your own mother?" I leaned forward, looking her straight in the eye. "Mary Jane, I'm going to tell you something that I hope you understand. Steve doesn't protect you from me. He isolates you from me, and there is a huge difference." "I don't understand the difference." "Protection gives you tools to face the world. Isolation takes away tools so that you depend on whoever is isolating you. Steve doesn't want you to be strong. He wants you to be dependent on him. But he makes me feel special. Special or needed. Mary Jane, have you wondered why Steve never had a problem with me paying your expenses, but he does have a problem with me having a close relationship with you? Mary Jane frowned, thinking, I hadn't seen it that way. Of course not, because he's very smart. He allows you to receive my money, but not my love. He allows you to benefit from my generosity, but not from my wisdom. He turns you into my heir, but not my daughter. Mom, you're confusing me. No, Mary Jane, I'm clarifying things for you. For the first time in years, I'm telling you the unfiltered truth. I leaned back in the chair, emotionally exhausted. Now tell me, what is more important to you? The money for your wedding or the relationship with your mother? Both things. Why do I have to choose? Because yesterday you already chose. You chose money when you shut the door on me. You chose money when you treated me as a provider instead of as a mother. You chose money when you humiliated me in front of your fiancé. We didn't choose money. Her voice sounded less sure. No. Then explain to me why Steve mentioned the $63,000 in the first 5 minutes of our conversation. Explain to me why his first concern was not to apologize for treating me badly, but to make sure the money was still available. Mary Jane fell silent, processing. I could see in her eyes that the puzzle pieces were starting to fit together. Mom, what do you want me to do? I want you to think for yourself, without Steve's influence. I want you to remember who you were before you met him. Were you more dependent on me, or were you more authentic? Mary Jane, before Steve, when was the last time you spoke to me disrespectfully? When was the last time you were disrespectful to me? Another revealing silence. Never, she finally admitted. Never. Because I taught you to respect your mother. I taught you that family is sacred. I taught you values that Steve is destroying one by one. I stood up, tired of the conversation. Mary Jane, I'm going to give you 24 hours to decide what is more important to you. If tomorrow, at this same time, you have not made a decision, I will make it for you, and I assure you that you will not like my decision. What decision, Mom? What are you going to do? Oh, that depends on you. But remember one thing, I have lived 71 years without Steve. I can live perfectly fine for another 20 without him. The question is, can you live without your mother? I walked away, leaving her there, sobbing in the hotel lobby. But this time her tears didn't stop me. This time my pain was stronger than my maternal instinct to comfort her, because the time had come for Mary Jane to learn that actions have consequences, and that a mother's love, although infinite, is not unconditional when it comes to respect and dignity. That afternoon, I dedicated myself to doing something I hadn't done in years, taking care of myself. I went to the hotel spa. I had a massage, a manicure, a pedicure. I had my hair cut at the most elegant salon in town. I bought new clothes that made me feel powerful and elegant, because I had made a decision. I was no longer going to dress as the self-sacrificing mother everyone expected. I was going to dress as the successful woman I really was. While I was trying on an elegant red dress in the most expensive boutique in the mall, my phone rang. It was Steve. This time, I decided to answer. Hello. My voice sounded cold, distant. Mary, we need to talk. His tone was no longer arrogant like yesterday. There was a note of nervousness that I was happy to hear. Talk, I told him, as I admired myself in the mirror. The red dress fit me perfectly. Look, I think there was a misunderstanding yesterday. Mary Jane is very upset, and so am I. The wedding is tomorrow, and we need to fix this. Misunderstanding. What a convenient word. There was no misunderstanding, Steve. You were very clear yesterday. I was not welcome at my own daughter's wedding. The message came across perfectly. That's not what we meant. We were stressed. You know how weddings are. Steve, let me ask you something. At any point in these 3 years, have you treated me as your fiancé's mother, or have you always seen me as an obstacle? There was a long silence. I don't know what you're talking about, Mary. I have always respected you. I laughed. A genuine laugh that surprised even the saleswoman. Respected me? Calling me an old woman is respect? Saying I'm a manipulator is respect? Convincing my daughter that my love is toxic is respect? I never said those things. Steve, do you think I'm stupid? I'm 71 years old. I am not a naive teenager. I know perfectly well what you've been doing. You've been poisoning my daughter against me since the day you met her. That's a lie. I love Mary Jane. Do you love her, or do you love what she can give you? Because a man who loves a woman doesn't drive her away from her family. A man who loves a woman helps her be a better daughter, not a worse one. Mary Jane is an adult who can make her own decisions. Her own decisions? Steve, Mary Jane hasn't made a decision on her own since she met you. Everything she thinks, everything she feels, everything she decides goes through your filter first. I signaled to the saleswoman to pack the red dress. I was going to take it. Mary, we didn't come here to argue about our relationship. We came to ask you to release the wedding money. Ah, there's the truth. You didn't call to apologize for treating me badly. You didn't call because you realized you made a mistake. You called for the money. The wedding is tomorrow. We have commitments, vendors to pay. We can't cancel everything at the last minute. And that's my problem? You decided that I wasn't important enough to be at the wedding. Now, I decide that your wedding is not important enough for my money. You're being very cruel, Mary. Do you really want to ruin your own daughter's wedding? Cruel. That word made me stop in my tracks. Steve, you know what's cruel. Cruel is raising a daughter alone for 43 years and having her shut the door on you on her wedding day. Cruel is working until you're sick to give your daughter everything and having her treat you like a stranger. Cruel is loving unconditionally and receiving contempt in return. But the money is already committed. People are coming from far away. It's going to be a public humiliation. Exactly. It's going to be a public humiliation, just like the humiliation you made me go through yesterday when you treated me as if I were an intruder in my own daughter's life. Mary, be reasonable. We can fix this. You can come to the wedding. We'll save you a special place. A special place? After paying $63,000, they offer me a special place, as if it were alms. A special place like what? In the last row, in the kitchen, or maybe standing outside watching the cars? My voice got harder with each word. Don't offer me crumbs after taking away the feast. Okay. Front row next to Mary Jane's parents. Steve, I am Mary Jane's mother. I don't need to be next to the parents. I am the closest family she has, or at least I was until you brainwashed her. Mary, tell me what you want, what you need to release the money. There was the million-dollar question. What I want, Steve, is for my daughter to remember who her mother is. What I want is for her to understand that respect is not bought with money. What I want is for her to learn that actions have consequences. And how do we do that? Very simple. I want Mary Jane to come to my hotel tonight, alone, without you, and I want her to apologize to me, not for the money, but for having disrespected me. And I want her to promise me that she will never again allow anyone to drive her away from her mother. That's emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail? Steve, you know what emotional blackmail is? It's convincing a daughter that her mother is toxic so you can control her better. It's making a woman feel guilty for loving her family. It's using love as a weapon of manipulation. I have never done that. No. Then explain to me why Mary Jane, who used to call me every day, now only calls me when she needs money. Explain to me why Mary Jane, who used to visit me every weekend, now comes once a month if I'm lucky. That's normal when people get married. Priorities change. Priorities change, Steve, but family love doesn't disappear unless someone is actively working to destroy it. I hung up the phone without giving him a chance to reply. I was tired of his justifications, his manipulations, his arrogance. But above all, I was tired of being treated as if I were the problem when I was clearly the victim. That night, while I dined alone in the hotel restaurant, I reflected on the whole situation. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the constant worry of pleasing Mary Jane. Free from the anxiety of not doing something wrong that could drive her away from me. Free from walking on eggshells so as not to bother Steve. Because I had understood something fundamental. I hadn't lost my daughter. My daughter had lost herself. And until she found herself again, until she remembered who she was before Steve, there was no relationship to save. My phone vibrated with a text message. It was Mary Jane. Mom, Steve told me about your conversation. I'm going to come see you tonight. We need to talk. For the first time in 24 hours, I truly smiled. Maybe, just maybe, my daughter was starting to wake up, but I was no longer the desperate mother willing to accept any crumbs of attention. I was a woman who knew her worth and who was not going to accept anything less than the respect she deserved. The war was just beginning, and this time, I had all the weapons. Mary Jane arrived at my suite at 8 p.m. When I opened the door, her appearance surprised me. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair was disheveled, and she was wearing the same wrinkled clothes from the morning. She looked destroyed, but for the first time in years, she had come alone. "Come in," I said, remaining serene. She entered slowly, looking at the elegant suite with amazement. "Mom, this place is incredible." "Yes, it is. When you value yourself, you treat yourself as you deserve," I replied, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "Would you like some?" "Yes, please. I need something to calm my nerves." She took the glass with trembling hands. "Mom, I've been thinking all day about our conversation this morning, and I think you're right about a lot of things." "About a lot of things?" "No, Mary Jane, I'm right about everything." My voice was firm but not cruel. "The question is whether you are ready to admit it." She sat on the sofa, burying her head in her hands. "I don't know what's wrong with me, Mom. It's as if I've lost the connection with myself." "You didn't lose it, my love. It was taken from you." I sat in front of her, studying her face. "Tell me something, Mary Jane. When was the last time you made an important decision without consulting Steve?" She looked up, confused. "I don't understand the question. It's very simple. When was the last time you said, 'This is what I want,' regardless of what he thought?" Mary Jane thought for a long time. I don't remember." "Exactly. Because for 3 years you haven't been yourself. You are the version of yourself that Steve needs you to be." "But he loves me. He tells me I'm not perfect for him." "Mary Jane, Have you wondered why you're perfect for him? Is it because he really knows you and accepts you as you are? Or because you have molded your personality to fit what he wants? Tears began to stream down her cheeks again. Mom, I'm so confused. Steve says he's helping me grow, but you say he's controlling me. I don't know who to believe. Don't believe anyone, Mary Jane. Believe yourself. Listen to your heart, not to outside voices. But how do I do that? I no longer know what my own voice is. Let's start with something simple. Tell me, did you really want such a big and expensive wedding? Mary Jane frowned. Actually, I always dreamed of something more intimate, a small ceremony on the beach with close family. And why didn't it happen that way? Because Steve says a wedding is the most important event in a woman's life, that we have to celebrate it in a big way so that everyone can see how happy we are. Everyone who, Mary Jane? Who is so important to impress? His friends, his work colleagues, his family. She stopped talking suddenly, as if she had realized something. Mom, I just realized that I didn't mention my friends or my family. Exactly. This wedding isn't for you, Mary Jane. It's for him. But I accepted. I said yes. Of course you said yes. Steve is very smart. He didn't force you directly. He convinced you that it was your idea. I stood up and walked to the window. Mary Jane, do you remember what you were like before you met him? You were more spontaneous, more cheerful, more yourself. Yes. Her voice was barely a whisper. Mom, is it normal for my boyfriend to constantly criticize me, to tell me how to dress, how to talk, who to associate with? My heart raced. She was finally beginning to see the truth. No, my love, that's not normal. That's control. But he says he does it because he loves me, because he wants me to be the best version of myself. Mary Jane, the best version of yourself is the authentic version, not the version he wants to mold. I turned to look at her directly. A man who truly loves you, accepts you as you are, and helps you shine by being yourself. He doesn't change you to fit his idea of perfection. Mom, I'm scared. Of what? Of you being right. Of having made a terrible mistake, of getting married tomorrow to someone who doesn't really know me. And what scares you most about that? That it's too late to change my mind. She stood up abruptly, pacing the room. Mom, everything is paid for. The guests have already arrived. Steve's family came from out of state. If I cancel now, it's going to be a horrible scandal. Mary Jane, do you prefer a one-day scandal or a lifetime of unhappiness? My questions stopped her in her tracks. A marriage is not an event, my love. It's a whole life. And if you have doubts now, just imagine in 10 years. But Steve is going to be furious. He's going to say I'm crazy, that I'm irresponsible. And that matters more to you than your own happiness? There are no buts, Mary Jane. Either your happiness is more important than his anger, or it isn't. It can't be both. Mary Jane sank back onto the sofa. Mom, if I cancel the wedding, I'm going to lose Steve. And if you don't cancel, what are you going to lose? Myself and you, me. The admission came out as a painful whisper. Mary Jane, I'm going to tell you something that I hope you remember for your whole life. It's better to be alone being yourself than to be with someone being a fake version of you. I sat next to her and took her hands. I was alone for many years after your father left, and they were happy years because I was authentic. Didn't you miss having a partner? Of course I did, but I preferred authentic loneliness to fake company. And look, I eventually found real love, but at that moment it wasn't my priority. Real love? When? 5 years ago, I met a wonderful man, Mike. But I didn't tell you about him because by then, Steve had already convinced you that I was problematic. Her eyes widened. You have a boyfriend and you never told me? Mary Jane, I tried to tell you several times, but every time I mentioned that I had met someone, you would change the subject or tell me to be careful with men who take advantage of older women. That sounds like something Steve would say. Exactly. Because they were no longer your words. They were his words coming out of your mouth. I stood up and went to my purse, pulling out a photo. Look. It was a photo of Mike and me on our last trip together. We looked happy, relaxed, in love. Mom, he looks like he really loves you. He adores me, and I adore him. But I have never allowed him to change me or drive me away from you. Because when love is real, it doesn't destroy existing relationships. It enriches them. He wants to meet me. He's dying to meet you. But he respects that I set the time and the way. He has never pressured me to choose between him and my daughter. The comparison was obvious and painful. Mom, it hurts so much to realize all these things. I know, my love, but the pain of the truth is temporary. The pain of living a lie is for a lifetime. I sat next to her again. Mary Jane, regardless of what you decide about the wedding, I need you to understand something. You are my daughter, and you will always be my daughter, but I will not allow you to disrespect me again. What does that mean? It means that if you choose to stay with Steve and he continues to poison you against me, I am going to protect my peace of mind. I'm not going to continue to be the ATM for your relationship or the villain in your love story. Mom, I don't want to lose you. Then don't lose me. But also don't expect me to settle for the crumbs of love that Steve allows you to give me. My voice hardened slightly. I deserve a daughter who defends me, who values me, who includes me in her life, out of love, not out of obligation. Mary Jane burst into tears. Mom, I've been horrible to you. I didn't realize what was happening. My love, realizing is the first step. Now the question is, what are you going to do with this new information? Mary Jane cried in my arms for 20 minutes. They weren't tears of manipulation or self-pity. They were tears of recognition, of genuine pain at having lost herself. When she finally calmed down, she looked at me with the clearest eyes I had seen in years. Mom, I'm going to cancel the wedding. Her words surprised me, even though it was what I expected to hear. Are you sure? It's a very big decision. I'm sure. I can't marry someone who has driven me away from the most important person in my life. I can't marry someone who makes me doubt my own mother. Mary Jane, cancel the wedding only if you really don't want to marry him. Don't cancel it for me. It's not for you, Mom. It's for me. I realize that I've been living the life he wants, not the life I want. She got up from the sofa with determination. I'm going home right now, and I'm going to tell him I'm not getting married tomorrow. Do you want me to go with you? No, I have to do this alone, but I need to know that when I leave there, I'll have a place to go. You will always have a place with me, my love. Always. I hugged her tightly. But Mary Jane, be prepared. Steve is not going to accept this easily. He's going to try to manipulate you to change your mind. I know, but I'm not going to fall for his games anymore. She took my face in her hands. Mom, forgive me for being so blind. Forgive me for doubting your love. Forgive me for allowing someone to convince me that you were the problem. You are forgiven, my love. The only thing that matters is that you regained your sanity. I walked her to the door. Call me as soon as you finish talking to him, no matter the time. I promise. After Mary Jane left, I sat on the balcony of my suite with a glass of wine, waiting. I knew the conversation with Steve was not going to be easy. I knew he was going to use all his weapons of manipulation to make her change her mind. But I also knew that my daughter had woken up, and a woman who has woken up is very difficult to put back to sleep. My phone rang at 11 p.m. It was Mary Jane, and she sounded agitated. "Mom, I'm in my car outside the house. Steve is furious. He yelled horrible things at me." "What kind of things?" "He told me I'm crazy, that you brainwashed me, that I'm irresponsible and don't understand the consequences of my actions." "And what did you tell him?" "I told him that for the first time in 3 years, I am thinking clearly that I realized he had driven me away from you and from myself. He went crazy. Mom, I've never seen him like that. Did he hurt you?" "No, not physically, but—" Her voice broke. "Mom, he told me that if I leave him now, he's going to ruin my life, that he's going to tell everyone I'm a crazy, unstable person, that he's going to make me lose my job." "Your job has to do with this?" "He knows my boss. He says he's going to tell him that I'm an unreliable person, that I can't be depended on for anything important." "Mary Jane, that's called blackmail, and it confirms everything I told you about him. I know, but I'm scared. What if he follows through on his threats?" "My love, a man who threatens you to stay with him doesn't love you. He owns you. And ownership is not love. Mom, can I come to the hotel? I don't want to go into the house." "Of course. Come immediately." 20 minutes later, Mary Jane arrived at my suite with a small suitcase. She looked pale, but determined. "I packed only the essentials. Tomorrow I'll come back for the rest of my things when he's not there." "How did he take the news of the cancellation?" "First, he tried to convince me that it was just pre-wedding nerves. Then he got angry and started yelling at me. In the end, when he saw that I wasn't going to change my mind, he became calculating and cold. That's when he made the threats." "Mary Jane, that change in strategy is typical of manipulators. First they convince you, then they intimidate you, and finally they threaten you." I sat on the bed next to her. "How do you feel?" "Scared, but relieved. It's like I woke up from a nightmare." "And what are you going to do tomorrow?" "The guests are going to arrive expecting a wedding." "I already thought about that. I'm going to go to the church early, and I'm going to personally explain to the closest family members. For the rest, we're going to put a sign at the entrance." "A sign?" "Yes, that says, 'The wedding is canceled by the bride's decision. We apologize for the inconvenience.' Simple and direct." Her determination surprised me. "And Steve? Steve can do whatever he wants. He can make up any stories he can think of. The people who really know me will know that I'm not crazy." "Mary Jane, I am so proud of you. I know this is not easy." "No, it's not easy. But Mom, for the first time in years, I feel like myself. And you know what the best part about all of this is?" "What?" "That you don't have to ask anyone for permission to be who you are." That night, Mary Jane slept in the second bedroom of my suite. But before we went to bed, we did something we hadn't done in years. We stayed up late talking, not about problems or drama, but about dreams, plans, and happy memories. For the first time in a long time, my daughter was my daughter again. "Mom, would you tell me more about Mike?" "Do you really want to know?" "Yes, I want to know about your life, not just be a part of it." I told her about Mike, about our trips, about how he had given me back the hope of being loved for who I really am. "When am I going to meet him?" "When you're ready. Without pressure, without a hidden agenda, only when you feel like you want to meet the man who makes your mother happy." "I want to meet him, Mom. I want you to know that I support your happiness." Her words filled my heart. "Mary Jane, there's something else I want to tell you. Something about your financial future." "What do you mean?" "Tomorrow, we're going to go see Alex. I'm going to change my will again. Everything I have is going to be yours, but with conditions." "What conditions?" "That you never allow anyone to manipulate you using my money. That you use that inheritance to be independent, not to buy love. And that if you ever have children, you teach them the value of family respect." "Mom, I don't need your money to love you." "I know, my love. But I want you to have it so that you never depend on anyone, so that you never have to put up with mistreatment out of economic necessity. That happened to me with your father, yes. That's why it's so important to me that you are financially independent." When we finally went to sleep, for the first time in years, I went to bed without that constant anxiety about my relationship with Mary Jane. I had recovered my daughter, not just physically, but emotionally. I had won the most important war of my life, the war for my daughter's soul. But I knew that Steve was not going to sit idly by. A man like him does not accept defeat easily. Tomorrow would be a difficult day, but I wouldn't have to face it alone anymore. My daughter was back on my side. The day of what should have been the wedding dawned gray and rainy. Mary Jane woke up early, more determined than ever. "Mom, I want to go to the church before Steve arrives. I need to talk to Father Alex and the family members who have already arrived." "Do you want me to go with you?" "No, I also have to do this alone, but I need to ask you a favor. Whatever you need. Can you unfreeze the money? Not for the wedding, but to pay back the vendors who are not at fault. It would be unfair for them to lose their money because of my decisions." I felt so proud in that moment. My daughter had recovered not only her authenticity, but also her sense of justice. "Of course. As soon as the bank opens, I'll make the transfer." "Thank you, Mom. Now I understand that it wasn't about the money, but about respect." Mary Jane left at 8 in the morning. I stayed at the hotel waiting for news and preparing for what I knew would come, Steve's revenge. I didn't have to wait long. At 10 in the morning, my phone began to ring with unknown numbers. First call. "Mary, this is Lauren, Steve's sister. What did you do to Mary Jane? She's acting crazy." Second call. "This is Barbara, Steve's mother. We demand an explanation. You have ruined my son's life." Third call. "Mary, this is Dan, the best man. This is a scandal. How could you let Mary Jane do this?" I answered all the calls with the same response. Steve knows exactly why Mary Jane made this decision. If you want answers, ask him. Because I knew that Steve had told them his version of events, where I was the manipulative villain who had destroyed their happiness. But the call that really surprised me was from a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Mary, this is Ivan, a reporter for the local news channel. We have information that the Steve-Mary Jane wedding was canceled at the last minute due to family interference. Could you give us your version of events?" There it was. Steve had called the press. He wanted to turn this into a public scandal to pressure Mary Jane to come back to him. "I have no comment for the press," I replied and hung up, but I knew this was just the beginning. Mary Jane returned to the hotel at noon, exhausted but at peace. How did it go? Better than I expected. Father Alex was very understanding. He said he prefers a canceled wedding to an unhappy marriage. And the family members? Most of them understood. Some were upset. But when I explained that I had serious doubts about the relationship, they said I did the right thing. And Steve arrived when I was finishing explaining the situation. He put on a terrible show, screaming that you had brainwashed me, that I was hysterical, that he had invested 3 years of his life in me. How did people react? Mom, that's when I realized that a lot of people already knew what Steve was really like. His own aunt told me afterward, Mary Jane, my nephew has always been controlling. I'm glad you realized before the marriage. Seriously? Yes. Apparently, it wasn't a secret to anyone but me. But the conversation was interrupted when Mary Jane's phone began to ring. It was Steve. She hesitated before answering. Answer it on speakerphone, I suggested. I want to hear what he says now that his plan is ruined. Mary Jane, thank God you answered. Listen to me. We can fix this. I know your mother filled your head with silly ideas, but we can get through it. His voice sounded desperate. Steve, they're not silly ideas. They're things I should have seen a long time ago. Mary Jane, honey, you're confused. Your mother is jealous of our relationship. She can't stand that you're happy without her. There he was again, trying to sow doubts. Steve, my mother is not jealous. She's worried, and she was right to be. Worried about what? I love you, Mary Jane. I have given you everything. No, Steve, you have taken everything from me. My personality, my relationship with my mother, my self-confidence. That's not love. That's a lie. I have helped you grow, to mature. Mature? Does maturing mean isolating myself from my family? Does it mean doubting my own feelings? Does it mean needing your approval for everything? Mary Jane's voice grew firmer with each word. Steve, you made me believe that my mother was the problem when the problem was you. Mary Jane, don't do this to me. Think about everything we have built together. What have we built, Steve? A relationship where you decide everything and I obey. That's not building, that's controlling. But I love you. Doesn't that count for anything? If you really loved me, you would never have driven me away from my mother. If you really loved me, you would have helped me be a better daughter, not a worse one. Mary Jane looked at me as she spoke, and I saw a strength in her eyes that she had lost years ago. Steve, this is over. Don't call me again. Wait, what if we talk to your mother and make up? We can start over. It was incredible how he now wanted to include me when he realized that he had underestimated me. No, Steve, there's no going back. And let me tell you something. My mother was right about you from the beginning. It's a shame I was too blind to see it. Mary Jane, if you leave me, you're going to regret it. No one is going to love you like I love you. I hope you're right. I hope no one loves me like you do because your love was killing me inside. And she hung up. Immediately, her phone began to ring again, and again, and again. Block him, I told her. You've had the conversation you needed to have. Now he's going to try to wear you down with calls until you answer. Mary Jane blocked Steve's number and sighed with relief. But I knew this wasn't over. I knew men like Steve. They don't accept defeat, they seek revenge. And indeed, an hour later, his next strategy began. Social media. Mary Jane received screenshots from her friends. Steve had posted on his Facebook page. After 3 years together, my fiancé decided to cancel our wedding on the same day because her mother convinced her that I was a bad person. It's sad to see how family manipulation can destroy true love. He's trying to make me look like a manipulated crazy person, Mom. I know, my love. It was predictable. What do? Do I respond publicly? No, never get into public wars with manipulators. They are experts at playing the victim, but I am going to do something. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell the world who Mary really is and who my daughter is. If Steve wants a media war, he's going to get one, but not with the weapons he expects. I walked to my laptop with determination. Mary Jane, do you trust me? Completely, Mom. It was time for Steve to learn that he had completely underestimated his opponent. I wasn't just a worried mother. I was an intelligent woman, with resources, with contacts, and with the truth on my side. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and created something I never thought I would do. A social media account, but not just any account. An account where I was going to tell my complete story with proof, with dates, with everything. If Steve wanted to play dirty, I was going to teach him how to play when you have 71 years of experience. Mom, are you sure about this? Mary Jane watched me write my first post nervously. My love, my whole life I have kept silent when I have been attacked. I have been the polite lady who doesn't make a fuss. But Steve touched my daughter, and I don't forgive that to anyone. My first post was simple but powerful. My name is Mary. I'm 71 years old, and yesterday my daughter canceled her wedding. Her ex-fiancé is saying that I manipulated her. This is my real story with proof. I attached a photo of me at the hotel, elegant and dignified, and another photo of Mary Jane and I hugging. In 2 hours, the post had 1,000 shares. In 4 hours, 3,000. People were intrigued. Comments of support began to arrive. Ms. Mary, tell us the truth. Mothers always know. Respect to women who defend their daughters. My second post was more direct. Steve says I manipulated my daughter. I'm showing you the last conversations we had before she decided to cancel the wedding. I published screenshots of his threatening messages, his insults, his blackmail attempts. Does this seem like the behavior of a man who loves? The effect was immediate. The comments became more intense. That man is an abuser. It's a good thing Mary Jane realized in time. Steve is a classic manipulator with issues all over the place. The narrative was changing, but my most powerful post was the third. Steve says I ruined his life. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped financing his show. I published a screenshot of the $63,000 transfer I had made for the wedding and another screenshot of when I froze it. A man who really loves doesn't measure that love in money. That's when things went viral. Thousands of women began to share their own stories of financial manipulation. Mothers who had gone through similar situations, daughters who recognized the patterns of control. My story had become the symbol of something bigger. Mary Jane was amazed. Mom, you have 50,000 followers in one day. I know, my love, because there are many women who have lived this. I just put into words what many have felt. And Steve is desperate. Look. My daughter's ex-fiancé had begun to respond aggressively on social media, but each response made him look worse. That old woman is lying. Mary Jane was happy until her mother got involved. Mary is a professional manipulator. Every comment of his generated more support for us. He's digging his own grave, Mary Jane observed. Manipulators don't know how to act when they lose control of the narrative. Mom, many women are writing to me telling me similar stories, some very sad. That's the power of speaking the truth, my love. The truth resonates. But the final blow came when we least expected it. One of Steve's ex-girlfriends, motivated by my story, decided to speak publicly. Her name was Lauren, and she had dated him 2 years before he met Mary Jane. Her testimony was devastating. Steve did the exact same thing to me. He drove me away from my family, controlled my money, made me believe that my mother was toxic. When I finally realized it and left him, he also tried to ruin my reputation. Seeing Mary Jane go through the same thing breaks my heart, but I'm glad she had a mother like Mary who defended her. After that testimony, 3 more women were encouraged to speak, all with almost identical stories. Steve had a pattern. Mary Jane had not been his first victim, but thanks to me, she had been his last. Mom, I feel awful for all those women. Don't feel awful, my love. Be thankful that you realized in time and be proud that your story is going to help other women recognize the signs. A week later, Mary Jane and I were at my house packing her things from the apartment she had shared with Steve. He had disappeared from social media after the scandal. He had lost his job when his boss saw all the viral material. His reputation was ruined. Do you feel bad for him? I asked Mary Jane as I folded her clothes. I feel bad for the person I was when I was with him, but not for him. And how do you feel now? Free. For the first time in 3 years, I feel completely free. That afternoon, while we were having coffee in my garden, Mary Jane asked me a question that surprised me. Mom, when am I going to meet Mike? Are you sure you want to meet him? More than sure. I want to meet the man who makes my mother happy, and I want to apologize to him for all the time we lost because of me. I called Mike that same night. My love, there's someone who wants to meet you. Mary Jane, yes, she's ready? Mary, I have been waiting for this moment for 5 years. You don't know how happy you make me. The presentation dinner was the next day. Mike arrived with flowers for both of us and with the most genuine smile I had seen in years. Mary Jane, your mother has talked about you so much that I feel like I already know you. Mr. Mike, I'm so sorry you had to wait so long for this moment. There is nothing to be sorry about, my child. The important thing is that we are here now. Throughout the dinner, I watched how Mike naturally included Mary Jane in our conversations, how he respected my role as a mother, how he never tried to compete for my attention. It was the behavior of a self-confident man who did not need to isolate the woman he loves. Mom, Mary Jane told me at the end of the night, now I understand the difference between real love and possession. Mike loves you so much that he wants you to be happy in all areas of your life. Steve loved me so much that he wanted to be my only source of happiness. 6 months later, Mary Jane had found a new job. She had made new friends and had started dating a man who encouraged her to talk to me every day. I had sold some of my properties, and Mike and I had decided to travel the world together. Mom, there's something I want to tell you. We were having lunch at our favorite restaurant, a tradition we had resumed. Tell me, my love. I want to thank you for being strong enough to fight for me, even when I was against you. Mary Jane, that is the difference between a mother and a manipulator. A mother fights for her child's well-being, even when it's difficult. A manipulator fights for control no matter the cost. You know what I admire most about all this? What? That you never told me. I told you so. You never made me feel stupid for falling for Steve's manipulation. You just helped me get up. Because my goal was never to be right, my love. My goal was always to have you back. That night, while I was having dinner with Mike in our apartment, he said something to me that I will never forget. Mary, what you did for Mary Jane was extraordinary. Not many mothers would have the courage to risk their relationship with their daughter to save her from herself. You know what I learned from all this, Mike? What? That true love sometimes requires being brave. It requires saying no when everyone expects you to say yes. It requires defending what is right, even if it makes you seem like the villain. And do you regret anything? Only one thing. That it took me so long to realize that I shouldn't apologize for loving intensely. For years, I thought my mother's love was too much. Now I know that my mother's love was exactly what Mary Jane needed to save herself. I don't regret driving 800 miles for a wedding I wasn't welcome at. I don't regret freezing 63,000. I don't regret fighting for my daughter when she couldn't fight for herself, because I learned that goodness should never be practiced at the cost of self-destruction, and that a mother who knows her worth raises daughters who know theirs. The names and places in this story have been changed to protect the identities of those involved. We do not share this to judge, but in the hope that someone will pause and reflect on how many mothers are silently suffering within their own homes. I truly wonder, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose silence to preserve peace, or would you dare to confront everything in order to reclaim your voice? I long to hear your thoughts, because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else. I firmly believe that God always blesses, and that courage leads us toward brighter days. As we close, I leave you with two of the channel's most beloved stories. I am certain they will surprise and inspire you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.